let's get to work. This video is sponsored by Ugreen. Ugreen has just come out with their latest line of Nexode charging accessories, including their Nexode 300-watt GAN charger, which delivers up to a whopping 300 watts of power, distributed between 5 devices, as well as their fun RG models. These guys come in 65-watt and 30-watt versions and feature a mini screen that lets you know your charging status. But more on those a little later. So recently, I built a new desk setup, and it's been working pretty well, except for the fact that it's set up right next to the TV, which can be a bit of a distraction. Since I'm creating videos now, the echo from the floorboards is also terrible for voice recordings. So it's time to build a new setup. I'll run through everything I use for this setup, plus the decisions and mistakes I made along the way. So follow along, and hopefully you guys find something useful. I'll link everything in the description if there's anything you guys want to check out. For this setup, I wanted to make things as flexible as possible. Sometimes I find it hard to stay focused when working in the same space for too long, and making small changes in the environment is enough to get the juices flowing. So to do that, I made sure to pick items that were easy to move. As always, the space needs to have everything I need to be productive, and of course, it needs to look good. Alright, the staple to any desk setup is of course the desk. I've been using an OmniDesk sit-stand desk for the past 4 years. And it's been reliable, which is why I reached out to OmniDesk, who were kind enough to send out their Ascent desk as well as a few of their accessories for this setup. The Ascent comes with a flashy control panel and can be paired with the OmniDesk Life app for a bunch of extra features to fine-tune your settings, like adjusting crash collision sensitivity and customizing your controller's color. If you're sharing this table with a couple of other people, you also get 5 additional height presets with the app, on top of the 4 already built into the control panel. I went with a black powder coated tabletop for a clean, stealthy look, and I'm also using OmniDesk's caster wheels so I can have a mobile desk to keep the overall setup flexible. For my monitor, I'm using a massive 43-inch Samsung M7 monitor on a Vivo heavy-duty monitor arm. I try to use a monitor arm whenever I can because it declutters the desk, which helps keep my head clear, but also gives me more usable space. This particular arm supports a monitor up to 49 inches with a maximum weight capacity of 33 pounds or 15 kilos, a channel to tuck away your cables, and comes in at a price point significantly cheaper than some of the other arms on the market. For this setup, I decided to use the Samsung M7 monitor because I wanted something simple I could easily connect my Macbook up to. And this particular monitor also has some pretty interesting features that you definitely don't see on most monitors. So this is a 21:9 43-inch 4K smart monitor. I opted for the bigger size because I wanted more screen real estate for better multitasking. What I really love about this monitor is its hub functionality, which makes it a one cable solution for connecting my laptop up to this monitor and other peripherals. So the USB-C port on the back supports video input, delivers up to 65 watts of power, and connects whatever device I have plugged in to the 2 USB-A ports on the back of the monitor. They're only USB 2.0, so not the fastest, and I probably wouldn't use them for file transfers, but it works perfectly fine if you have an external keyboard or mouse that you want to use with your laptop. On top of that, the monitor also supports AirPlay, which means I can stream my display from my Mac, iPhone, or iPad with no cable at all. If you want to make this a no computer setup, the M7 also comes with its own remote and runs the Tizen operating system, which means you can use this with no computer at all and still watch Netflix, Disney Plus, and YouTube just like you would on a smart TV. Now, for anyone looking to pick up one of these monitors, it actually doesn't support the commonly used VESA 100 or 75mm mounts. So if you want to use this monitor with an arm, you'll also need to pick up an adapter to convert the 200x200 mount on the back to work with a VESA 100 or 75mm plate. The keyboard and mouse I'm using for this setup is the MX Keys and MX Master 2S. I didn't really see a need to switch from my Logitech Craft to the MX Keys, but an unfortunate coffee incident meant I was left with no choice. Still, I've been enjoying this keyboard too. It's pretty much the same as the Craft, but since they removed the dial, it comes in at a much smaller footprint, making it easier to move out of the way when I need some extra space. My MX Master 2S was lucky enough to survive the coffee fiasco, so it's still my go-to mouse. Now, a great feature of this combo is the multi-device support. Both the mouse and the keyboard have the ability to switch between up to 3 devices, but one thing I would really like to see is a way for them to communicate with each other so that you can switch devices with the keyboard without having to do it again on the mouse. The keyboard and mouse combos still have programmable buttons, which I use to quickly sort through windows. And Logitech has also introduced Smart Actions. It's something that Logitech has implemented into their Options Plus companion app that lets you take their programmable buttons even further by letting you program a string of actions and assigning them to a key. For instance, if you're currently working on a project that requires you to open the same set of apps, documents, or folders, you can set a smart action that will open everything up at a press of a button. There's a lot of options here, so a real possibility to speed up your workflow. Now, taking things even further, I'm also using the Elgato Stream Deck. It has so much functionality packed into a small device, and it really allows me to get things done much faster. As its name implies, it was originally a device made for streamers, but since its release, its software has really evolved. And now the Stream Deck has taken on more functions that have made it a pretty solid productivity device as well. So the Stream Deck is a macro pad that lets you program each of these buttons to do a huge variety of different things, like moving and resizing windows, controlling your Spotify playback, controlling your smart lights, inserting formulas in Excel and VBA, remembering keyboard shortcuts in DaVinci Resolve, and a particularly cool one is using the multi-action function to open and place all the folders and documents for a particular project in just one click. These are just some of the examples of how I use the Stream Deck, and I feel like I'm only scratching the surface. There's so much you can do, I could probably make a video about this device alone. And something that's quite intuitive about the Stream Deck are the LCD screens behind each button. Each key can change what it is showing, which means you don't have to struggle to remember the functions you've assigned to each key. And it also means you're not just limited to 15 keys, because you can have different pages of functions and folders. As someone who loves tech, I've got a lot of things that need power. So to keep everything charged, I've been using Ugreen's 300 watt and 65 watt multi-port chargers. So these are both from Ugreen's latest line of Nexode chargers, and I've been using them to set up charging stations around the office, which has just been a super convenient way to keep my devices topped up. No more looking around to find the right charger and the right cable because everything is set up right here. Alright, so I have the 300 watt charger set up on these drawers. As the name implies, this delivers a maximum output of 300 watts, which is a huge amount of power, especially given its size. The charger supports the USB Power Delivery 3.1 protocol, which is what allows the top port to deliver up to 140 watts of power, which fast charges my MacBook Pro from 0 to about 56% in 30 minutes when paired with a USB-C to MagSafe cable. This is particularly impressive because the port is able to deliver 140 watts even when there are 5 devices connected. The other 4 ports' power output do vary depending on the number of devices connected, but its power output is more than enough to charge 2 laptops simultaneously. And even with 5 ports in use, there's still enough power to fast charge my MacBook Pro and iPhone. Okay, so the 65 watt charger doesn't have as many charging ports, only 2 USB-C ports and a USB-A port, but it's obviously a lot smaller and still delivers a great amount of power given its small form factor. And 65 watts is still enough to charge multiple devices simultaneously, including fast charging an iPhone to 60% within 30 minutes. Plus, I'm a sucker for cool design, and a mini display is both functional, letting you know the charging status of your devices, and it's fun. Even though I'm using both of these as charging stations, they're also great chargers to take with you while you're traveling or as EDC, because it totally cuts down the amount of chargers you need to carry. And for anyone who doesn't need as much juice, the RG charger also comes in a 30 watt version. Thanks again to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. Link is in the description if you guys want to check out these chargers. Okay, on the side of the desk, I have a Shure MV7 mic set up on an OmniDesk microphone boom arm. This arm from OmniDesk has a clean design with a handy channel to hide the microphone cable, and it gives me easy access to the mic by letting me swivel it in and out of position. Alright, attached to the arm is the Shure MV7, which I've primarily been using to record the voiceovers to these videos. This is a dynamic microphone, so it mainly picks up the sounds directly in front of the mic, which is great for recording my voice and doesn't pick up as much of the unwanted noise in my environment. A major advantage of this mic is the fact that it has XLR and USB inputs. This means I can keep the setup simple by plugging the microphone directly into a Mac or PC via USB-C, but the fact that it can take XLR means I can make use of an audio interface in the future. The MV7 also works with the Shure Plus Motive software, which lets you play around with some of the settings to adjust how the mic sounds. Alright, even though I have a couple charging stations in the room, I like to have some cables readily available at my desk for devices I need to be using as I work, such as my keyboard and mouse, and I'll be using this cutout in the desk to keep the cables hidden away. On my previous setup, I used some magnetic cable holders which were pretty convenient, but because of the position of the USB port on the MX Master 2S, there wasn't enough clearance to use the charging cables without the magnetic attachment dragging along the table, which got a little annoying. So this time I picked up some cable clips which I've attached to the cutout cover. This cable clip lets me store a variety of different cables with dividers that stop the cable head from sliding through, while also giving the cable enough slack so that I can pull it through when I need to. Also underneath the desk, I've installed a desk drawer. I want to keep the desk clean, but there are still a few things that I want to have at my fingertips, so an under desk drawer gives me the best of both worlds. Alright, powering the setup, I'm using the M1 Pro MacBook Pro. I won't get into it too much here, I think everybody is already pretty familiar with Apple Silicon at this point, but the MacBook Pro has loads of power packed into a really portable form factor, and amazing power efficiency for great battery life when I need to work on the move. I thought it would be a shame to waste the MacBook's awesome display, so I have it sitting on a laptop mount next to the monitor. That way I get a bit of extra screen real estate and I can easily plug it into the M7 monitor via a USB-C cable. The arm and mount are from Omnidesk, and the arm is super practical because it has two USB 3.0 pass-through ports, which I have plugged into my PC, meaning really convenient USB access. Speaking of PC, I decided to mount one underneath my desk. I used the PC caddy in my last setup, but since I want this one to be super modular, mounting it to the desk itself makes it really easy to move everything all at once. I did run into one issue when installing though. I took into account the width, height, and length of the PC as well as the width of the table brace, but I totally forgot about the spacing between the feet. Amateur move by me, but nothing a quick modification couldn't fix. Alright, this thing is running an RTX 4080 with an Intel 13600K and 64 gigs of RAM, which is perfect for 4K editing and gaming, and will easily handle any Excel spreadsheets I throw at it. Feel free to check out my PC build video if you want to build one yourself. Okay, to keep this setup looking clean, I wanted to hide as many cables as possible. Since I'm moving this desk around, ideally I only want to have one cable coming from the desk to power everything on top. I'm not using 3 monitors like my last setup, so the process was a lot simpler, but it was still important to plan everything out to make sure everything worked. For this setup, there are 2 sets of cables, power cables and display cables. For power, I mounted a power board to the bottom of the desk with 3 M strips. I recommend a power board with a decent gap between each socket so you can plug in multiple devices even with chunky power bricks. And USB support is a bonus, so you don't have to have as many chargers around. I've plugged the power board into a 5-meter extension cable so I have plenty of length to move the desk around. Also, make sure you label your cables, guys. Save yourself the hassle of having to guess the cable when it's time to unplug something. To keep any excess cables hidden, I wrap them with Velcro cable ties and tuck them away in this massive expandable cable bar from Omnidesk. I'm also using the cable bar and the monitor arms to hide away my display cables. For my chair, I'm using the Embrace Pro by Omnidesk. It's got a great amount of support with 12 points of adjustments, but I think my one piece of criticism is that I'm not the biggest fan of the huge logo. I would have appreciated something a bit more subtle. Alright, storage. I think every office setup needs to have a bit of storage. I've got documents for work as well as miscellaneous tech and cables I want to store away to keep the setup clean. So I picked up 2 sets of Alex drawers from everyone's favorite furniture store, IKEA. These are very popular drawers, and for good reason. They're relatively inexpensive and they offer a huge amount of storage space. Now the benefit to using drawers rather than open shelving is that they're easier to maintain. Because things are hidden away, the drawers stop things from getting dusty, and there's a lot less work needed to keep your space looking cool. Okay, I'm also using this Obergran armchair from IKEA for extra seating. This chair is part of the limited edition run that IKEA did with Swedish House Mafia, and I think it looks pretty awesome, with some very sleek curves and super minimal design. I really wanted a spot where I could sit back and relax. After a long session at the desk, I start to find it hard to concentrate on what I'm doing. So I wanted a spot where I can completely step back, rest my eyes, and clear my thoughts. Google, turn on the lights. To light the space, I placed a couple lamps throughout the room, my favorite being this absolutely huge lamp from IKEA. I also used a combination of smart bulbs and plugs from IKEA to enable smart home functionality. I'm already part of the Philips Hue ecosystem in the house, and they're a long-standing player in the smart light space, but IKEA offers a more budget-friendly alternative, and they can also connect to the Philips Hue bridge, which is compatible with Google Home. That means I can control the lights through the Philips Hue app, Google Home app, Google Nest, or my Stream Deck. Alright, to finish off the setup, I've put a couple things around the room that I just think look cool. And for anyone who commented on my previous video asking what this is, it's a document scanner, not a fax machine. And as far as scanners go, I think this one is pretty aesthetic too. Alright, and that is my new desk setup. I'm really loving the new space so far, especially the flexibility to move everything around if I need to switch things up. But as always, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Is there anything you guys would do differently? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. Alright, that's it. I'll see you guys next time.